Local governments in China are facing financial crisis, leading to pay cuts for civil servants, with numerous agencies unable to pay salaries. Videos circulating online show staff from the Transportation Bureau in Jizhou District, Tianjin, protesting for 9 months of unpaid wages, with dozens of police officers on guard and several police cars parked on the roadside. Social media posts have revealed that local governments are out of funds, with civil servant salaries in Zhucheng City, Shandong Province, delayed for 3 months. To pay salaries before the Chinese New Year, the government has mandated civil servants to assist in securing loans for government use. Department heads are required to borrow 600,000 yuan, deputy heads 300,000 yuan, and ordinary staff 200,000 yuan, with salary payments contingent on fulfilling these loan targets. Zhucheng City, once affluent with rich coal mining resources, has seen a drastic decline in tax revenue following the relocation of the Yangquan Group's headquarters to Jinan. The city's expenses soared during the pandemic due to a vaccine incentive policy and daily PCR testing costs. The predicament in Zhucheng mirrors the severe challenges encountered by once prosperous counties, not to mention the even graver conditions in less well-off areas. Analysts predict that salary and bonus reductions within the system will continue through 2024, becoming the norm. Hospitals have also begun to delay salaries. Lu Xinan Hospital in Yanggu County, Shandong, owes employees 8 months of wages. In response to protests, the hospital's director began a hunger strike to express his regret over the unpaid wages. It has been revealed that financial difficulties in Shangchu, Hunan, led to the mortgage of a hospital in Jizhou District to a bank. The diversion of medical insurance funds for daily PCR testing over 3 years of the pandemic has depleted resources. Patients in public hospitals pay 30% of medical costs out of pocket, with the hospitals covering the 70% reimbursement portion. This practice has drained hospital funds, resulting in salary disputes. Currently, the bank directly collects payments at the hospital, making it even more difficult to pay doctors. The situation is exacerbated as some people cannot afford medical insurance, which has increased from 10 yuan to 380 yuan annually. Without income, these individuals cannot pay for medical insurance, and with the Medical Insurance Bureau lacking funds to allocate to hospitals, the financial strain on hospitals intensifies. Not only that, even the salaries of teachers are being unjustly deducted. At the end of January, teachers at Nanhai Middle School in Guangdong engaged in protests due to months of unpaid wages. Furthermore, reports indicate that professors and doctoral advisors at Liaoning University have also initiated protests due to approximately 1,500 retired staff members not receiving their pensions on time. Liaoning University has long been known for offering substantial subsidies to attract African students, even receiving special support from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. However, the university's financial situation has now reached a breaking point. Teachers are all facing difficulties with delayed wages, with retired staff members being the first to suffer. This situation aligns with the Chinese Communist Party's national policy of sacrificing the most vulnerable members of society first. Many point out that if top universities in China are in such a predicament, the situation for smaller businesses and work units can only be imagined. In the days leading up to the Lunar New Year, Zongnan Junqi, a real estate developer in Xi'an, Shaanxi, had yet to settle workers' wages. A man who came to demand his salary was in tears and was even willing to kneel for it. On February 6, a group of migrant workers who had been denied their wages gathered in front of the Jizhou District government building in Tianjin, urgently requesting government attention and resolution to their issue. However, security personnel attempted to prevent the workers from approaching the building. A video showed that on New Year's Eve, construction workers unable to receive their wages protested on a highway near the Chichu Mountain toll station in Zhetong County Mianyang City in Sichuan. Netizens also report that in Wuxi, dozens of migrant workers seeking overdue wages from China Construction 8th Engineering Division were detained at a police station, going without food for an entire day. These signs indicate that local finances in China are truly depleted. Data show that in 2023, the income of local government funds in China decreased by more than 20% year over year, as did the income from state-owned land sales, suggesting a severe imbalance in local government revenue and expenditure. An article by Chinese financial media Yi Chai in November last year pointed out that in the first 3 quarters of the past 2 to 3 years, excluding factors such as retained tax refunds, 2/3 of local governments were in a state of financial insufficiency, with only about 1/3 of provinces and cities showing a positive growth trend. From the financial data of 17 provinces, it is evident that local governments' general budget expenditures significantly exceed their revenues, leading to an overall deficit. Even those areas showing positive growth are merely striving to maintain fiscal balance, with limited growth margins. Once fiscal balance is disrupted, they too could fall into financial distress. The article suggests that this phenomenon is caused by various factors, such as local governments' over-reliance on land finance, excessive investment in infrastructure, and a slowdown in economic growth. Notably, the ongoing slump in the real estate market has made it difficult to achieve favorable prices at land auctions. As land sale revenues are a major source of income for the Chinese government, the real estate downturn directly impacts land prices, thereby reducing local government's income sources. Data released by the National Bureau of Statistics on February 8th also show a 2.5% year-over-year decline in the Producer Price Index, PPI, for January, exceeding the expected 2.6% decrease and marking the 16th consecutive month of decline. The Consumer Price Index, CPI, also fell by 0.8% year-over-year in January, more severe than the expected 0.5% decrease, marking the 4th consecutive month of decline and the largest drop since the 2009 financial crisis. In terms of categories, the decline in food prices was greater than that of non-food prices, with double-digit percentage drops in the prices of pork and vegetables. Chen Xiaonong, an economist based in the United States, states that although China's economic data may contain inaccuracies and exaggerations, it is worthwhile to observe overall trends. He cites the continuous decline in CPI and PPI as evidence of an undeniable economic recession in China. Cheng asserts that the situation can no longer be explained by traditional economic concepts of inflation and deflation, suggesting that only economic contraction could cause simultaneous declines in PPI and CPI. He explains that the entire economic condition has entered a contractionary spiral, with various sectors mutually restraining each other, leading to overall shrinkage. Without alternative measures, further declines are expected. Not only are the PPI and CPI indices continuously falling, but provinces are also actively lowering their revenue expectations for the new year. According to Yi Cai, as of January 30th, all 31 provinces had held local 2 sessions, with 30 provinces, excluding Qinghai, providing expected growth rates for local general public budget revenues in 2024. Compared to last year's actual revenue growth, 28 provinces, including Guangdong, Jiangsu, Zhejiang, and Shandong, have lowered their revenue growth expectations for this year, with only Shanxi and Jiangxi increasing their revenue growth rates. Tibet and Jilin have significantly reduced their revenue growth expectations. This reflects the array of challenges and issues currently facing China's economic operation, including a slowdown in economic growth leading to slower increases in tax revenue and other fiscal incomes. Additionally, local governments face growing fiscal expenditure pressures, but the growth rate of fiscal revenues falls short of expectations. The implementation of some regulatory policies may also impact local economies, such as real estate market regulation and environmental policies. Ultimately, the core issue is that the government is running out of money. Why is this happening? Analysts believe that the primary reason is problems with government fiscal and tax revenues. On one hand, sources of income are decreasing. For example, businesses, being one of the main sources of tax revenue, contribute less as a number of business closures increases. Moreover, the issue of population aging is becoming increasingly severe. Typically, the young labor force is the main taxpayer, while retired individuals no longer pay taxes, leading to reduced tax revenue. The collapse of China's real estate market is also a reason for the decrease in fiscal income. Real estate involves related taxes, and the reduction in land sale revenues directly affects hidden income. Furthermore, the use of various financing platforms by local governments for off-balance sheet borrowing has led to a massive hidden debt, posing significant potential risks. Taking these two aspects into account, the situation of decreased income and increased expenditure has become the current norm in China. In fact, as of January 2024, China's fiscal and tax policy was already operating on a break-even basis, becoming extremely conservative. The Chinese government is indeed running out of money, and living on debt has become the norm. Bloomberg statistics show that in 2024, the amount of urban investment bond maturing in China will reach a record high of 4.65 trillion yuan, with 1.2 trillion yuan maturing in the first quarter alone. Urban investment bonds issued by Chinese urban investment and construction companies or urban investment entities are typically fully guaranteed by city governments. Their returns derive from the revenue of urban infrastructure projects and the financial support of city governments. Bloomberg reports that 30% of the municipal bonds maturing this year were newly issued last year, indicating that local governments have been issuing bonds with shorter maturities in order to borrow at lower costs. This reflects the limited fiscal capacity of local governments, which are resorting to debt financing to bridge fiscal gaps. The French Natixis Bank has noted that China's economic recovery momentum has not fully rebounded, leaving local government revenues and debt repayment capabilities uncertain. There's also the need to eliminate the risk of debt default in financially weaker regions, highlighting the challenges faced are not to be underestimated. Moreover, at the start of the new year, several local governments in China have already begun preparing to issue new local bonds. Henan Province issued its first bond on January 17th, amounting to approximately 24.7 billion yuan. According to information disclosed by 28 provinces and cities so far, the total issuance volume for the first quarter of this year is expected to reach 1.6 trillion yuan. External forecasts, considering the factors such as economic stabilization and fiscal sustainability, predict that the total local bond issuance for this year could reach 9 trillion yuan. Concerningly, in recent years, the Chinese government has taken measures to issue a large volume of bonds, swapping hidden debts with financing bonds to mitigate local debt risks. As of November 24th last year, China had issued more than 1.3 trillion yuan in special bonds, with an additional 1 trillion yuan in national bonds issued in the fourth quarter. The issuance of trillions in bonds by the CCP authorities has directly led to the fiscal deficit ratio breaking through the international safety line of 3%, currently standing at 3.8%. The national fiscal deficit has increased from 3.88 trillion yuan to 4.88 trillion yuan. The deficit ratio, which is the ratio of the fiscal deficit to GDP, is an important indicator of fiscal risk. It's worth noting that an active fiscal policy often implies an increase in government fiscal deficit. Since local governments do not have the authority to issue currency, and the central government does, raising the central government's deficit limit effectively means injecting more monetary funds into the market. However, the current problem with China's economy is not related to currency issuance or an increase in the money supply, but due to the public's pessimism about the future economy, leading to reluctance in consumption. The policies introduced by the CCP have not effectively stimulated domestic demand. In response to the current economic challenges, Although the CCP authorities have taken measures, the massive debt only temporarily alleviates local fiscal difficulties. Overall, local fiscal problems remain a serious concern. According to Chinese financial media Tianjin, China's debt to GDP ratio exceeded 227% in 2023. This indicates that China's debt burden is continuously rising, with one significant reason being local government's constant investment in infrastructure, leading to continuous borrowing. Analysts believe that while municipal bonds supported by large-scale infrastructure projects have symbolic importance, they do not make a substantial contribution to economic growth. On the contrary, massive infrastructure development may exacerbate the crisis within authoritarian regimes. This is because such actions increase the debt burden without corresponding economic growth. From the perspective of debt, these large-scale infrastructure projects have also accelerated the downturn in China's economy. Moreover, in recent years, the proportion of local government debt and off-balance sheet finance platform debt has been rising. Around 2010, government and platform debts accounted for only a quarter of the total debt increase, but recent data show this proportion has grown to 50%. Reports indicate that in 12 key provinces in China, the ratio of local debt to GDP has exceeded 80% in the most indebted provinces, with at least 30% in other regions. Additionally, the growth rate of some local debts exceeds that of retail sales. The economic model of large-scale infrastructure construction, debt growth outpaces economic growth. It is known that the debt is fueling excessive investment in infrastructure in other areas without effectively promoting growth in the real economy, resulting in a waste of economic resources. This situation where corporate profits decline and unemployment rates rise is leading to a lack of consumer confidence, further affecting the demand for goods and services and leading to a decline in price levels. These issues are hindering China's economic growth. Notably, the State Council of China recently issued measures for key provinces to strengthen the management of government investment projects. The measures required 12 provinces and cities to strictly control new investment projects and rigorously review and regulate ongoing ones. This measure aims to control debt risk, especially for projects such as highways, shantytown renovations, industrial parks, and some municipal infrastructure. It requires a cessation of construction for projects with significant issues. This indicates that the CCP authorities have recognized the seriousness of the fiscal debt problem, which has become severe enough to affect the stability of the regime. In an interview aired on CBS's 60 Minutes on Sunday, February 4th, Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell stated that China's economy is now facing challenges and has deviated from market-led growth models. Another view suggests that the root cause of the CCP's fiscal problems lies in its control over the economic system. After experiencing poverty brought about by the public ownership and a planned economy during the 50s to 70s, China was forced to undertake so-called reforms and open up in the 80s, claiming to implement a market economy. However, China's market economy fundamentally differs from those in democratic countries. The CCP has never granted Chinese people permanent private property rights, including land, which remains state-owned. This nationalization has led to an inevitable contradiction. Although financial power is centralized in the central government, fiscal resources are gradually depleting, leading to a contraction rather than expansion of the fiscal system. Modern state wealth primarily comes from modern enterprises, but China lacks developed modern enterprises. Therefore, the government needs to increase the number of modern enterprises and open up the market to effectively access more resources. However, the CCP uses state power to tightly control economic operations. Despite claims of implementing a market economy, the market serves to disguise economic control. Due to a lack of independence and autonomy, the institutional system of China's market economy is incomplete, lacking a clear property rights system and the rule of law. The government's subsidies and export tax rebates to stimulate exports have disrupted the world trade order and created unfair competition for private enterprises. Private economic freedom and resources are not guaranteed and can be stripped away for political reasons at any time. Many in the West naively believed that economic development would bring political freedom and democracy to China. Regrettably, the CCP leveraged Western support to bolster the socialist framework, thereby consolidating its grip on power. With the money earned from Western support, the CCP has implemented more brutal suppression and persecution of the Chinese people. The so-called stability maintenance expenses invested by the CCP in suppressing the populace are estimated to have exceeded 1 trillion yuan.